Good afternoon, everyone. How are you today? I wasn't sure I was going to make it. You know, there's a little bit of a rainstorm going on right now, and flying from D.C. to Atlanta, we were kind of nervous about it, but I'm glad to be here. I thought it was important enough to take that risk, and fortunately, everything went smoothly. It's kind of apropos that I follow Aaron Taylor in comments, because I followed Aaron Taylor in class as well. He was 2 years ahead of me. While he's much more smarter than me, I'm a little taller, so it kind of balances out for the both of us. But, you know, Aaron is a great example of not only someone who I think is very well-rounded, because if you ever get a chance to hang out with him, you definitely should, but he's also a genius. And the genius that he used and he exhibited in law school is definitely being exhibited in the tasks and the policies and the procedures that they're putting forth at Access Lex, because we've identified those problems. We've lived through those problems. He's definitely taken a concerted and a very conscious effort to make sure that you don't have to face those problems in the future. So, Aaron, thank you for that. So I am Reggie McGahee. I am the Associate Dean of Students at Howard University School of Law. I've been in that position now for about 15 years, and I've seen literally about 9,000 applicants come through. And over the next 2 days, you're going to hear a lot of information about things you should do, about things that you need to do to prepare yourself for the law school admissions process, no matter where you go to law school. So I thought, instead of just heaping on the same advice that you're going to hear, I would try to do something a little different. And I'm going to try and tell you the things you should not do. So you may want to write some of these down. It's not a long list. I think but there's a theme to it, so I'm going to ask you to just bear with me. You know, instead of telling you things that you will do, we're going to talk about things you won't do. And the first thing is very important, that you don't cut corners. Now, I kind of think that I'm preaching to the choir. I mean, you're here, you're giving up a beautiful day, a beautiful Friday afternoon where I'm sure you could do almost anything else, but you chose to invest in yourself and come and get some good advice and some good information about how to prepare for law school. But hearing information isn't the same as taking what we say and adapting it. I think Aubriana's point is very key. Your habits will determine your success, and you don't decide to become a lawyer and then just become one. The habits that you exhibit on a daily basis, that you adopt over time, will determine, in many cases, what type of lawyer you become. I watch every year watching students come in with a lot of potential, and then they start to stratify themselves. You'll see the students who will hunker down and study and work hard, and then you'll see others who will try to find the quickest path and the least path of resistance to get to information. Typically, those two paths end in two different places. And my universal statement to students is, law school is the time to struggle to learn so that you're not struggling to learn in the profession. The skills, the habits, the things that you learn in law school are replicated and used daily in the profession. So take the time in school where you have people that are guiding you, that are looking out for you, that have your best interest in mind, and allow them to show you the best ways so that you can become and so that you can adapt that habit. Because when you enter the profession, the expectation is that you're going to guide others through your skills and your knowledge to help them either arrive at a solution or solve a problem that they face. But when I mean at this point in the process for you, what I mean by not cutting corners is, let's start with the LSAT. How many of you have or plan to take the LSAT this year? Hopefully, if you're going to apply to law school, that's most hands. One thing that I hear all the time when students are studying for the LSAT, or whenever I speak to them before they study for the LSAT, is the LSAT is not a proper representation of my abilities. You know, one score doesn't can no way tell you how good I am or what type of student I will be. And I completely agree with you. We don't use the LSAT to tell any of us, and I mean speaking for law school admissions officers, we don't use the LSAT to tell us what type of student you're going to be. But it does tell us a certain amount of information about your preparation and your skill development. Now, I won't go into a long conversation about the LSAT, because there are specific panels here over the next 2 days where they will discuss the LSAT. And I'm more than confident in my colleagues to be able to give you the highs and lows, the ins and outs of the test. What I do want you to understand is you have to take the LSAT or a test of comparable standards to be able to evaluate it and be critiqued into most law schools in the country. If that's the case, accept that, but then prepare yourself for it. Typically, when I have a conversation with a student and they have some type of concerns or they have some type of frustrations with the LSAT, I want to pause that conversation for a second, and then my next question to them is, well, how have you prepared? Right now, you have a wonderful resource that wasn't available at this time, I guess about a year ago, and that's Khan Academy. Have you heard of Khan Academy? If you have not heard of Khan Academy, I hope that you hear it so much this weekend that you become sick of it. But I'm going to put a plug in for Khan Academy right now because there is no better source of information and better resource for students that is absolutely free that is available to you right now. So whether you decide to take another prep course and pay hundreds or even thousands of dollars to do it, that is completely your right. But please at least start with Khan Academy, see what resources they have, give it a true, honest effort, see what improvement you can make, and see what return on that investment you can make before you spend any other money. Because your money will become one of your biggest hurdles and one of your biggest assets in law school. So if you can save as much of it now, then I definitely encourage you to do that. Khan Academy will help you prepare for the LSAT so that regardless of what you believe or what you think about it, if you have not done your best in preparing, then all those other arguments are void. Because whenever we see parts of your application, the first assumption that we make is that you've given it your best, that you put your best effort for it, and that you've tried your best. And if you have not done those things, then what true marker of yourself are you giving us to evaluate? Whether you want to make that argument about your transcripts and your GPA, we have to assume that you've been dedicated and focused enough at whatever point you've decided that you wanted to be a lawyer, that you put your best foot forward. So the sooner that you realize that and the sooner that you get started, the sooner that you can accept where you are and then start navigating and making decisions from that point. You don't have to have a 180 on the LSAT. You don't have to have a 4.0. But whatever you have, understand that we will assume it's your best. And you'll feel much more comfortable about the process if you can say that this is my best. In the classroom, with your transcripts, every day, as Adriana mentioned, it's a habit. Going to class prepared, doing your homework at night, seeing it as a tool to become a master of something, not as I just need to get a good grade. A lot of students are really smart but don't have the best grades for various reasons. So your job is to make sure that your preparation and the opportunity that you have in front of you are met, and then the yield of that should be wonderful grades. And the yield from wonderful grades should be the impression that you've earned the knowledge that will position you to build on that knowledge to go into graduate or professional school. But even the best students don't necessarily become the best attorneys. We're not evaluating your ability to be a great attorney. We're evaluating your ability to be trained to be a great attorney. And after that, it's completely up to you as to what you do with it. In your personal statement, it can be difficult to determine what you want to say because everything in your life is important. But if you give yourself time to write it, and time to rewrite it, and time to really sit down and think about why you're entering this profession, then at least you position yourself to write the best statement you can write versus waiting to the last minute or waiting till application deadlines are due and then trying to rush to get something out, which I'm sure none of you would do. You would rush at the last minute to get something out just so that you can meet the application deadlines. Which leads me into our next don't. Don't wait till the last minute. Most law schools start accepting applications in October 1st for most schools. That means in exactly 2 weeks. And most law schools will accept applications until sometime mid-spring. You will notice that a lot of schools are moving their application deadlines up. And what I mean by up is closer to January 1st, because there are now more times to take the LSAT available. Before it used to be 4, you would have one in October, you would have one, October, December, February, and then June. But now, because there's 6, some schools are even considering moving their March deadlines up to February. So that means that it can technically be a compressed window if you're not ready. But those dates don't change every year. There's no reason you have to wait until the year you plan to prepare for law school or plan to go to law school to start preparing for law school. If you have a professor that you think you've done really well in their class and they have a good insight into who you are as an individual, go ahead and make that contact, nurture that relationship, ask for the letter of recommendation so that it's available and ready for you when you need it. But that's just one way of how having time on your side helps you be better prepared. As Dr. Taylor mentioned, pull your credit report. If you don't know your credit score, find out. If you don't have a credit score, build one. Because even if you don't need to borrow money, and I hope everyone in this room can get a full tuition scholarship to law school, but if you can't, then your next option will be paying for it. And a lot of ways of paying for it is with a four-letter word called loan. And if you can't get a loan, then it puts a barrier in your way that sometimes is very difficult to overcome. So at least if you know your credit score and you know that the things on your credit report are accurate, and if you haven't built a credit history and you take the time to start building one now, then at least it opens up the possibility of having access to a loan so that you can make a decision as to whether you want to use one to go to school. But most importantly, I think the thing that I want you to remember, which brings us to our last don't, is to don't doubt yourself. You know, sometimes speaking with students, and you look at the mythical idea of becoming a lawyer, and it seems so much grander and so much larger than it does on the other side. You know, I even look at students in their first year of law school, and they walk around. I'm sorry if I smile a bit because it's a little cute to me, because you see the transition of them over 3 years, where it's the deer in headlight look, where everything's coming at them 100 miles an hour. They are afraid that they're going to get run over by a truck. And then by the third year, they're completely bored with the entire process because they get it. And it's amazing watching that transition from a deer in headlights to, oh, this isn't that bad. Can you get out of my way so I can go do what I want to do? And that will happen to each and every one of you. But at the same time, the idea of doubting that you deserve to be here is, I think, one of the biggest things that students of color have to overcome. Because many of us are the first in our family to go to college, many of us will be the first in our family to go to law school, and many of us will think, sooner or later, somebody's going to realize that I don't deserve to be here. Stop that. You have to be your biggest cheerleader. Only you know how much you've overcome. Only you know what you've gone through. Only you know what you want to do. No one can doubt you. If anyone else doubts you, it can't be you. You have to be your biggest cheerleader. And here's the most important part. When you get into law school, that is the law school telling you that they believe in you as well. Every law school receives more applications than they have space. Everyone. So if they're making the decision to invest in you and to add your strength, your talent, your knowledge into the classroom, they're saying that they see something in you that they value, that you've earned and that you've demonstrated. You cannot doubt yourself. And then the question becomes, well, if I avoid all these don'ts, what's the point? What's the purpose? Why are we having this conversation? And this conversation, plus all the information that you're going to hear over the next 2 days, is only for one purpose, and that's to give you power. 3 purposes: power, control, and options, which essentially are the same thing. Because if you prepare yourself, there's a completely different path into walking into the application process to law school, hoping or praying or begging that someone lets you into law school, and walking into the process and saying, you want me, and I know you want me because I'm phenomenal, so come find me. Come offer me the very thing that I want, and then I will choose where I want to go. Everyone that's here today, especially Evangeline, I agree with Erin. She definitely deserves more than just a group applause, but I think if you have a moment, take a moment. I know it's a busy weekend, but even if you shoot her an email later, just take a moment and personally say thank you to her, because she's invested time, effort, energy, blood, sweat, and tears over an immense span of time for the very purpose of making sure that you have the opportunity that you want, that you've asked for, that you prepared yourself for. So she's poured a lot of herself into this, so I would appreciate if you could take a moment at some point to just stop by and say thank you to her. But the whole purpose of this, and everyone that has traveled near and far to get here, and we're providing this opportunity for you to have this space, is so that you can have as much information, knowledge, and opportunity available to you so that you can have control over this process. Because ultimately, while you may hear a lot of information about there being a lot of lawyers, there's not a lot of lawyers that look like us. So we need you in the profession. There are communities that are waiting for you, and there are people that without your help would not receive quality legal services. So the sooner that we get you there, the sooner that you can help them, the sooner that we can start making this society more responsible and more responsive to the dreams and ideals of our forefathers and our ancestors. So you have a lot of people that you're going to hear from. This is the last that I'm going to say to you, but the most important thing that I want you to remember is to don't cut corners, don't waste any more time, and most importantly, not to doubt yourselves. Thank you.